Now, Frappuccino became a $4 billion business at Starbucks. If I wouldn't have listened to her and then taken the risk to break the rules and to try something out of the norm, we would have never had it. Great leaders always listen.
On this episode of the Liberty Ventures podcast, I have the pleasure of talking with Howard Behar, the former CEO of Starbucks. That's right. After serving as president of North American operations for 21 years, Howard was the CEO of Starbucks. And when he joined, the company had 28 stores. When he left, it had over 15,000. And we talk about how they were able to scale there based on a people-first servant leadership model that's been a guiding force for Howard over his whole career. We dig into his own personal mission and principles and how he came up with those and has continued to live them out for over 50 years, how to be a leader through uncertain times and build trust from one's stakeholders, especially one's team, in order to get the best results. It's an amazing conversation from an amazing leader, and I hope you enjoyed my conversation now with Howard Behar, former CEO of Starbucks. Howard, I think everyone already knows about your incredible experience with Starbucks, being the president of North America for 21 years, retiring as president and CEO from Starbucks before you left, and the amazing work you're doing now, serving on boards of both nonprofits and for-profits. But I'd love to actually take a step back and learn more about your story or share it with everyone. What led to you going to Starbucks and starting your development as a leader?
Yeah, well, I turned right instead of turning left. I was president of a retail land development company in Seattle that got in trouble. And I met this young guy named Howard Schultz. And he was looking for a head of operations. And our business didn't make it and we had to sell it. And so over about a year's period of time, Howard and I had this dance. I didn't fit all of his criteria, but at the end of the day, we found common ground and I got an invitation to join Starbucks and I did, and the rest became history. That was in 1989. There were 28 stores, and when I retired, there were 15,000. Now there's like 35,000. But I grew up in retail. I've been in consumer products my whole life, primarily retail. So I fit perfectly into Starbucks, and Starbucks fit me like one of those gloves you put on your hand, and they're so tight you can see the wrinkles and everything in your hands. That's how Starbucks fit me. It was just a perfect fit. I saw right away that it wasn't about the coffee, that it was about the people, and that had been my background. I've been a proponent of servant leadership and a student of servant leadership for over 50 years. So, that's what I brought to Starbucks, and the rest is kind of history.
Let's talk about just what servant leadership means and really dive into that here, because for some people, this might be a new term for them. So, in your words, what is servant leadership?
Well, I think there's three basic things to servant leadership. The first one is to understand that you're here to serve your people, not be served by your people. And the way that you serve your people is, number one, help them grow as human beings, as individuals. Number two, help them grow as professionals. And number three, help them achieve their goals in life. And when you do that for your people, then they want to serve you. And so it all begins and ends with the idea that as a leader, instead of thinking that you're here to be served by your people, that you're here to serve them. And it's pretty simple but complex all at the same time. Because when you say you're here to serve your people, that means that you've got to be aware of what their needs and wants are and their desires, and then go about helping them achieve all of those and fulfill all of those. So that's the basis of it. There's all sorts of words now people use: transformational leadership, conscious capitalism. All the things go to support basically the same idea.
So I know, but I want to address the attention that some people raise with servant leadership, where you have an objective as an organization, you have goals you're trying to get everyone to achieve, and so it seems fundamentally you bring people onto the team to achieve those goals, and they're there to serve that. How does servant leadership work with the sense of these objectives that you're trying to accomplish?
You know, the idea is that people want to do those things because they feel they're being served by the organization. You can't force somebody to do something. And so, The way things happen in life is when people feel that you care about them, that you're there to help them, then they want to help you. And so, absolutely, companies and organizations have goals. Servant leadership is not this soft, mushy stuff. Servant leadership at its core is about performance. You got to get the job done, and no matter what the job is. Now, in order to do that well, you want to feel like you're cared about in the organization and that you're served by the organization. I've been doing this for a long time. I've worked for people that were autocratic style leaders. Trust me, they never got the hearts and souls of the people. People were always kind of moaning and groaning, in servant leadership, people are moaning and groaning because they know that you care about them, and they want to help the organization achieve its goals. And when you bring somebody on into an organization, the first thing you talk to them about is what the greater purpose of the organization is. I mean, you got to hire the right people first. You got to have people that care about it and care about building an organization, care about themselves. And when you do that well, then they come in and they contribute. But servant leadership isn't this, well, maybe people do, maybe people don't. No, it's about performance. But performance not on the backs of people, but with people.
And I want to talk about performance, but you mentioned that this is actually complicated and it's difficult to understand what people's needs and desires really are. So, what techniques or tools have you found to be most effective at really understanding what your team, your people are looking for to best serve them?
You have to ask, and you have to have open, honest conversations. And first of all, you need to know your people first as human beings. That old adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It applies. And so you have to care about them. And then what happens is you begin to talk about the things that need to get done in the organization, and they sign on to those things. It's complex in the sense that you have to listen and respond and act. And sometimes that's hard for some people. They think that their people should just do what you tell them to do, but it doesn't work very well that way. And so the complexity is listening and acting on what you hear. I I never was Howard Schultz, who was the CEO, chairman CEO of Starbucks. Really, he he was the creative guy. He had a new idea every day. I was the alchemist. And what I mean by that, I would go and ask people what they thought. And then when I talked to enough people, I'd take those ideas that might be disparate ideas and figure out how to put them together. And then I'd go back and check with them, is this what you meant? And that's the way that I did it. And so it took a lot of listening and a lot and less talking.
So let's make that tangible. Are there any examples of your alchemy from your time at Starbucks that you think is really illustrative of this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a district manager named Dina Campion. And Dina Campion ran Southern California for us. And Dina called me up one day and she said, Howard, can you come down to visit? There's something I'd like to show you. And I'd like to take you on a tour of our few stores that we had. This was early on. So I went to visit Dina and she took me on a tour of our stores. And then she took me to a competitor's store. In one of the competitor stores, there was a product that Dina thought we should have something like it in our stores. And I'm a slow learner, but I understand quickly these drinks were selling for like $3, and they had a lot of ice in them. That if Dina thought we could sell like 30 drinks a day per store, so I brought Dina's idea back to Seattle, and I explained it to everybody. And I said, I think we ought to test this, and there was no support for it. And so I called Dina up and said, right now there's no support for it, but let's come back at it in 6 months. Well, about 3 weeks later, Dana called me again. And I always like to say the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom. So in this case, Dina, she was the one that knew what customers wanted because she was in Southern California because she was listening. And so Dina's broom was this drink that she wanted to put in. And so she called me up and said, "Can you come down again?" And I said, "Dana, what is it that you want?" She said, "Well, I just want to show you something about the drink." And I said, "You're not going to make a special trip, but I'll come down." So I went down. Dana produced some samples of this drink. And I said, "Geez, Dana, these taste remarkably like that drink that we had in the competitor store. Are you trying to get me fired?" And Dana, with those big brown eyes, said to me, "Howard, we've got to do this. Please let me test this." Well, it was one of those times in all of our leadership careers that we kind of have to break the rules a little bit. And, and I did. And I said, "Okay, we can try this." So Dina and her broom. Dina created Frappuccino, all because I listened to Dina and I responded. It wasn't my idea. Now, Frappuccino became a $4 billion business at Starbucks, all because of Dina Campion. If we wouldn't have listened to her, if I wouldn't have listened to her and then taken the risk to break the rules and to try something out of the norm, we would have never had it. And that's how it goes. And so that's what is great leaders always listen. And very seldom do you get a $4 billion idea from somebody, but that's not, most businesses work on the culmination of a lot of little ideas coming together. So I'm not pleading for anarchy here. You can't do everything everybody wants to do, but here was Dina pushing, and saying, "I think we had to do this," and I listened to her.
And it sounds like you're not just talking about listening to her, but allowing for an encouraging experimentation, letting people really drive forward what they think is going to deliver results and is going to be in the best interests of themselves, their colleagues, and the company as a whole.
Yeah, and you got to be willing to take risk. I had 4 rules. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything immoral. Don't do anything unethical. And sure as hell, don't poison anybody. And if you could live by those 4 rules, we could try anything.
And the Frappuccino what became obviously a huge success for Starbucks. Brilliant idea. When you were working with other people, if you didn't think something was a good idea, how would you talk to them and not move forward with it in a way that still made them feel like they were being heard from, that they were still able to pick brooms in other areas, or still be listened to?
Well, I never closed anybody off. I never rolled my eyes and said, "That's dumb." I'd always say, "Let me think about that for a while. Let me talk to a few other people." And I would take somebody's idea, because I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know, but maybe it was a good idea and I just didn't see it. And so I'd ask other people about it and see if I got any agreement. And then I had on my office wall, it was about 20 feet long, I had a section for these uh, pink card 3x5 cards, orange 3x5 cards, and white ones. And under under those ever on that wall were everything we were working on. The white cards were just ideas, no commitment, just ideas. Anybody at any time could come into my office, take an idea, and pin it to the wall under the appropriate headings. And then once a month we'd have a meeting and we'd look at all those white cards, say anything here we want to move forward with. And sometimes we were, yeah, let's take a couple of steps. So then we'd take it and we'd put it on the pink cards, excuse me, on the orange cards. And then we experimented a little bit with it. And then after a while, the group of cards got smaller and smaller. And then the idea, we said, "Hey, this really has merit." And so we'd put it on the pink cards, and the pink cards were things that we'd committed to. And so there were always ideas coming on and off that board. So sometimes somebody had an idea that never had got any support, and we took it off the board. That was fine. It was always amazed me how many times an idea was just about timing. It wasn't right then, and nobody could see it then, but 2 years later it came back up, and the timing was right.
Are there any big examples of that timing that you're able to share here, where it did take a couple of years for it to come to fruition?
Yeah, the Starbucks card was one about timing. We worked on that idea for 17 years, but the technology wasn't ready. And as soon as somebody said we think the technology is ready, then we went full speed ahead. And the technology was holding us up, and we kept trying to do it. And then over time, the technology got better and better. It used to be, the magnetic stripe, and then it went to the chip. And once the chip was on that card, we could do anything with it. So yeah, that's where timing can be off.
And clearly, again, another huge win for Starbucks after introducing the card. And everything you're sharing, perhaps it's my background with conscious capitalism, or perhaps this is becoming a more common approach to leadership. But in what ways do you see other leaders not leaning into these kinds of practices or things that they commonly get wrong about leadership?
There's lots of examples. Let's talk about Uber, right? The guy that founded Uber. He was an autocrat, and he was abusive to his people. And at the end of the day, Uber almost imploded because of it until they finally replaced him. And now it's going pretty well. Microsoft, who we all have a lot of respect for Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, but they were kind of autocrats. They were a little bit abusive to their people. If somebody came in with an idea that they didn't like, they'd call them stupid and actually say those words and kick them out the door. And for 15 years, Microsoft did not move much. And then the new guy comes in and he takes over and he totally changes how the organization was run. He said the most important skill any leader needs to have is empathy. So now that company is screaming again, you know, and all because of a change in attitude and culture inside the company, and they cared about people. And so, he's a servant leader. He may not call himself that, but that's what he is. And you see it all the time. Uh, Amazon, I think, is an example of a highly successful company. Uh, buys a company that Whole Foods, right, and and is destroying it, right. I never go into Whole Foods anymore because it lost its soul. You know. Now maybe they'll be great. I don't know, but I never, I never relate money to success. Success is when you get a team, because success kind of comes and goes, right? Nobody owns it, and but when you get a team that knows that you care and the leaders are focused on growing the people and they understand that first you grow the people grow the organization, and the organization grows the business. That's the formula.
So I love the emphasis you're placing on people here, but having read your books before and knowing you, I know that articulating your personal and the organization's values and then actually translating those into action is a core part of this as well. And I'd love for you to dig into just how to do that effectively because lots of businesses and leaders talk about values, put them up on the walls, but it never translates into meaningful action afterwards.
Oh, because the values are just words. If I say I'm an honest person, honest is just a word. Now the next question is, okay, what would you be dishonest about? What would you tell a white lie about? What does honesty mean to you? What is honesty in this organization? You have to define it. So you take the value, I'm honest, now you define it. A leader has to do it for themselves first. It has to understand what it means to them. And then the organization has to agree honesty is an important value in our company. And then the organization has to define what honesty means in the organization. And then everybody gets held accountable to that from the top to the bottom. And that's how it works. And, I have, let's see if I have it here. I do. Put it in my briefcase. Excuse me for not looking up. But this is a piece of paper that I've had for over 50 years. And this is a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. And on this document has my mission statement, has my core values, and my 6 Ps, how I do everything. And I have lived by this. And so I think every leader, if they're worth their salt, has a document like this, something that they live by. And my mission statement is to live my life every day, nurturing and inspiring the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And then my core values are these: honesty, fairness, respect for self and others, responsibility, integrity, trust in self and others, caring, and love. And then how I do everything. Everything is my 6 Ps. Everything I do in my life has to have a purpose greater than myself. That's my first P. It's got to be bigger than me. It has to have meaning. Then the second P is if I have a purpose greater than myself, then I damn well better be passionate about it. Scream it from the highest mountaintops. Then the third P is persistence. Nothing happens in life without being persistent. If I would identify one trait that every entrepreneur that I've ever known has, it's persistence. They don't give up because there's lots of rocks in the rivers we call our lives, and we hit those rocks a lot of times, and we got to get over them, around them, through them, or blow them up, or get them out of the way somehow. And then the fourth P is patience. Nothing happens in the time frame that we want it to happen. So we have to have patience. Now you'd think persistence and patience are opposite of each other, but they're not. They go together. You have to be patiently persistent. And then the fifth P is performance. Performance matters. Fact of life. If you commit to have a monogamous relationship in your married life, then performance is you have that. If you commit to go to your kid's soccer game, then performance means you show up. If you commit to get something done at your organization, then you get done what you say you're going to get done, or you tell somebody early that you're not going to get it done. So performance matters in this world. We're getting measured every day. And then the sixth P, the most important P, everything we do in life is about serving other human beings. There is no role or job that anybody will have that isn't about serving another human being. Whether you're a widget maker making widgets that go into a printing press that gets sold to a publishing company that makes a newspaper or magazine that gets delivered to somebody's home, that lowly widget maker, right, is about serving other people. May not know it, but that's the key, is to identify how what you do serve others. That you'll never burn out if you're focused on that. You may get tired. We all get tired, but you'll never burn out.
So it's really funny to me. I actually, have for a long time, said there are three P's that I think are most important in life: purpose, people, and profit to make it sustainable, with a fourth P of persistence, empowering all of them. Very similar to yours, but I love how you've also included passion, patience, and performance in there because those really are critical to this.
Performance can be profit. That.
And the patience is so critical here because everyone wants a short-term solution. They want to get rich quick. And so much of this just takes continuing to work at it. The persistence lead requires that patience to get those results.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen in the time frame that you want it, and staying with it means a lot. I do another thing. I have a 5 year plan. Now I'm almost 80 years old, so 5 year plans are starting to get optimistic. But I still am going to have that 5 year plan because I'd rather run out of time than not be working on my goals. And so I do that, and I've set goals. I set 1, 3, and 5 year goals, and those goals drive me. They've changed over time. It used to be how much money I wanted to make, how much income I wanted to have, what personal growth I wanted to have. Now, or career goals. Now it's about what I want my life to be about. It's not about accumulating things. Now it's about giving away things.
So your goals may have changed, but you said you've had this document for 50 years. How did you even go about putting this together?
I was struggling with a problem that I had in my early on in my career, and um, I somebody gave me this book. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's kind of like the Seven Habits written by Stephen Covey, and it was very similar. And it talked about doing these things. And I had never, hell, at those days, companies didn't have mission statements. We had budgets, we had plans. There was no mission statement. Just get the job done, and shut up, you know. Uh, and so that's how it started. And I started with writing my own mission statement and then identifying my 8 core values. Some of those has changed over time, and then defining what they meant to me and trying to live my life according to those. And I do. That's how I try to live my life every day. Really keeps me focused. If you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. And I just believe in leading a life of intention.
And I ask this because I think for a lot of other leaders out there, whether they're starting out in their career or they've been doing this for a while, if they don't have it, creating their own mission, values, and principles to live by is such a powerful guide for them to create that same document for themselves.
Yeah, because leaders, I'll tell you, an entrepreneur starts a company. I mean, it's got to start with his or her values. That's what forms in the company first. But if they're not written down, then they're just wishes, hopes, and dreams, right? And getting commitment and then making sure that people are aligned with that. Why would you hire somebody if your first core value in the company is uh, honesty? You wouldn't want to hire anybody that you thought was dishonest, even if their results were good. If they cheated their customers but they got a lot of sales, you don't want that person.
That's right. Now, you mentioned that your goals change over time. And of course, change is inevitable in every organization and business. And leading through uncertainty, transition, and change can be really challenging. It can be challenging to even what the values are of the organization, the people involved. How did you navigate that? And how do you recommend others think about maintaining their values, being focused on people while going through major changes?
It goes back to that word honesty, authenticity, and vulnerability. Those are buzzwords a lot of people use now, but they happen to be true. When you're struggling with something, acknowledge that you're struggling with it. You don't have to create fear in the organization, but ask for your people's help. Tell them what you're struggling with. If there's an issue inside the organization, let them know what's going on. How anybody, get their help and explain it to them and give them the information. Many leaders are afraid to share information with their people. I always believe that you share it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you do that, then they always know where the organization is at. And they're much more capable then of helping the organization get through the change or the problems that the organization's having. If they don't know, how can they help? And if you're not being honest with them, they know. You don't ever hold secrets. People always know when the organization's got problems. You may not think they know, but they do. So you might as well better be honest with them and ask them for help than being dishonest. Leaders are too afraid of opening up. Need to be more open and acknowledge the issues and share it with your people. When you trust your people, it's amazing what can happen.
It creates reciprocity. They trust you, and so are able to deliver better results to grow together.
Trust is the grease of the world. I mean, what does an autocratic leader want to do when they want to get control? They want to create distrust, right? You look around the world and you look at autocratic leaders around the world. What do they want to do? They start blaming other people. They say these are bad people. We shouldn't let these people come into our country, or whatever it is that they do. They create distrust, right? But great leaders, servant leaders, create trust by being open and honest and caring. And that's what, if you look at our country right now, what's the biggest issue we're facing is lack of trust between us, between, people we want to call the right and the left, you know, whatever it is, whatever the segmentations, there's lack of trust between us.
And Howard, everything you've done in your career, everything you're doing now, continuing to spread the message of servant leadership and the importance of building this trust, I think is contributing to fix that. So I want to say thank you for sharing all of this with the Liberty Ventures community today, and just thank you for being such an inspiring model and leader for the rest of us.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate you. Let me live out my mission statement, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Howard.